You are listening audio paper series with Yasir, and today's guest is Dr. Cathrina Edwards from Quorum Institute, Norwich, UK, to discuss one of her publications, Enhanced Secretion of Satiety-Promoting Gut Hormones in Healthy Humans after consumption of white bread enriched with cellular chickpea flour, a randomized crossover study. It is published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Welcome, Cathrina.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for accepting my invitation. So would you like to tell us the background of satiating promoting gut hormones and the relationship of white bread?
So this actually goes back quite a long way. I've been passionate for many years now as a nutritional scientist about developing healthier foods. So for me, I see this global problem with obesity and type 2 diabetes, the detrimental effects on health and quality of life, and the food environment needs to change. So we're not specifically picking on white bread, but white bread is one of those foods that is consumed by more than 90% of households in the UK. And it's a perfect vehicle for trying to get people to eat more fiber and get better nutrition and fullness from their food. So white bread was our test product.
So how did you conduct this study?
Okay, so this was a double-blind randomized crossover study. And what we had to do here is to develop bread products with a new type of fiber called a cellular chickpea flour. And what's different about this flour compared to normal wheat flour is that it has a different microstructure. So the fiber structure is much closer to what you find in a whole food, right? So we had this flour that we've developed. We put it into a standard white bread recipe, replacing 0, 30 or 60% of the wheat flour with this new type of whole cell chickpea flour. And then we baked it into bread rolls. The bread rolls tasted all right. They passed the quality tests. And they then become test foods for this randomized crossover study. So in the human study part, we recruited 20 healthy human participants. They come into the metabolic research unit. This was done at King's College London. And on each morning, they receive a different bread for breakfast. They have to eat that with jam. And then after that, we take blood samples to see what the effect of that bread is on things like glucose, insulin, and gut hormones, which were of interest.
Okay, lovely. That's very interesting. So you made kind of bespoke recipe and the bread for this study. Very interesting. So I'm looking forward to hear the findings. What are the main findings of this study?
Yeah, so what we set out to find out was if we could improve the fullness effect of white bread by changing the microstructure of the flour involved. And what we found was that actually when we put this whole cell chickpea flour into the bread, we got a 40% lower after meal spike in blood sugar responses. So lower blood sugar effect, lower insulin response, and these are really good outcomes, by the way. Really important to have low glycemic carbohydrates. But then what was really exciting is that we also saw a big increase in the fullness hormones. GLP-1 and PYY are hormones that are known to cause fullness. And when the participants ate the breads with the cellular chickpea flour, the blood levels of these hormones was much higher and stayed high for longer, which is a really encouraging sign. And at the highest dose, the participant also scored themselves feeling fuller for longer. So what we've effectively done is by putting cellular chickpea flour in bread, make it have a lower effect on blood sugar and insulin, but make it more filling. So this is ideal if we think about the problems around obesity and type 2 diabetes in current society.
It sounds great. Your new recipe has better glycemic index and the participants feel less hungry, so they will not be eating much in the next meal.
Well, I have to correct you a tiny bit because it's not strictly glycemic index. Glycemic index is measured in a very particular way, and what we've measured here is more the after meal effect, which is a slight difference in the methodology, but it's a similar principle. And then the second point was about you mentioned that they eat less. Now, we didn't see them eat less. We had a study in 20 people. And although they reported feeling more full, when we actually measured how much they ate at the meal afterwards, we didn't see a significant difference. So we're going in the right direction, but whether or not this is actually going to be enough to get people to eat less, I think is a much more challenging question, as something that we need to investigate in a larger study where we have enough statistical power to see if there's an effect on food intake or not.
For the correction, these findings are amazing. So do you think we can apply them for the future studies, or in clinical settings, or in society?
Yeah, I hope so. So this is really exciting. I think the ingredient that we use, the cellular chickpea flour, is something that has been already been taken forward for commercial use in the food industry by a company called Pulson Foods. So it's got a trademark name, which is Pulson. So hopefully food producers can make use of this ingredient now. In a clinical setting, I think is really interesting because there's also been a lot of interest in different type of drugs and injections that simulate the action of GLP-1, which is one of the hormones we looked at. But here we're trying to achieve the same fullness effect using food. So it's a big jump from food to clinical applications and weight loss. But I think certainly this study shows how important food microstructure is in influencing things like fullness and glycemic responses. So maybe we can do a much better job of developing foods that have the right structure for these clinical applications. So there's more to be done.
Lovely. No, looking forward to your research in the future. Thank you very much for sharing very interesting piece of research.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.